Yes, this is John G. Sutton. Welcome to Tales from the Jails. Got a strange story to tell you today. It dates back to round about 1980. And during that time, I was on nights one night, working in Strangeways prison. And it would be about midnight. Now, let me tell you this. At midnight, the prison is completely locked down. That means that the gates are locked, the inner gates are locked, the gates into each of the units of the prison are locked. All the inmates are locked in their cells. They've been accounted for, and the staff inside are patrolling in case of any incidents. The officer in charge of the prison during the nights would be a principal officer, and he's located in the central rotunda at Strangeways. So if you look at Strangeways, front on from Southall Street through the gates, F wing, governor's office on the right, straight ahead into the centre. On the right hand side of the centre, there's a box on the rotunda area, and in there, that's where the principal officer would be. So I'm on nights. I think I was patrolling E wing. That was the wing I was on, up and down, checking it all, counting them in, make sure there's no problems. Usual stuff. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do that job, believe me. Anyway, so it gets to be 12 o'clock at night, and some Farrakis, the principal officer, had to leave the central rotunda, so we were advised that he was going out and some senior officer was taking over. Anyway, be about 12:15 he came back. What had happened was the police had arrested a man in the centre of Manchester for being drunk and disorderly. And when he'd been arrested by the police, he told the police that he was the governor of Strangeways prison. And they said, really? Well, we'll find out whether you're the governor of Strangeways prison. So they drove him in a police car to the front of Strangeways prison, banged on the door, contacted the prison through a telephone, and said, we've got a man here who claims to be the governor, and he gave him the name and said, well, we do have a man who is a governor at Strangeways prison. He wasn't actually the number one governor, he was the deputy governor. And they said, well, would you accept him, and take him into the prison and look after him, if he wants to come in. Otherwise, we're going to have to take him into cellular accommodation. So they'd asked the principal officer, and he'd said yes, and he went down to the gate, and the deputy governor was allowed in. But he was obviously drunk, inebriated, and he'd been aggressive in Manchester. But anyway, so about midnight, this deputy governor came into the prison, and you would have thought, having been arrested by the police for being drunk and disorderly, you would have, and they didn't charge him with it, they just arrested him and put him into a place of safety, which could have been the police cells, which would have normally happened, but because he was, in actual fact, who he said he was, they allowed him to come into the jail. Now, if you got any sense, you would have said, right, I'll go to my office, the deputy governor's office, which was near the number one governor's office, and sleep it off, But oh no, not him, not this guy. He was drunk enough to insist that he had come to the prison to conduct an inspection of all the Category A inmates, and he and his role he assumed immediately his role as the deputy governor, and he decided that he was going to check all the inmates on Category A list, because they're all so. The principal officer in charge of the prison at night actually escorted him around the prison to check all the A-list inmates, the dangerous inmates. This would be about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, waking them up, checking them, and this guy was pissed out of his skull. I mean, if that had been me and I'd have been the principal officer in charge of the prison, I would have said, not only am I not taking you around the prison, to see that wake up the Category A prisoners. I'm going to put a report in concerning your condition and what you're attempting to do. Now, in the meantime, either get yourself into your office and sleep it off, or I will throw you out of the prison. That's what I would have done, but he didn't. Anyway, disrupted all the prison. There were Category A inmates on E-Wing. I was ordered to come round while they were unlocked and checked. Absolute madness. It was a thing that they had in Strangeways, that the hierarchy actually were believed. I thought they were quite mad. Listen, it was New Year's Eve, and I believe it was 1979. New Year's Eve, and in the prison officers' club, that's the bar. They had a little social room, like a function room, and they'd actually hired in a brass band, to play in the new year, Old Lang Syne and all that, and should old acquaintance be forgot, and drums and trumpets and all that. Great fun, they would have, all the staff in there that weren't on duty. Unfortunately, I was on duty. Again on nights. I didn't like nights, I bloody hated it. So anyway, it gets to be about 12:30. Who's at the gate? Apparently, the #1 governor, whose name I shall recount as being Norman Brown. With him at the gates was the brass band, and this is absolute truth, he brought the brass band in to the jail. Yeah, this is the 1st of January 1980, into the jail, round them up in the rotunda, and they were stood right in the middle of the rotunda, and he in effect conducted them, land of hope and glory, and you name it, blasting out. Everybody in the jail was awake. They only played about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I mean, come on, at 12:30 at night, and you can imagine it's echoing round this great big old Victorian jail. Norman Brown. Then he took them all out of the prison. How he managed to persuade the principal officer to open it up, I don't know, but he did. Anyway, the following morning, there was a bloody great queue to complain to the governor that had been disturbed in the middle of the night. And who was on duty to take their complaints but Norman Brown? Yeah, he recovered. I don't know, he must have had an amazing capacity for recovering, because when I saw him about 12:30 with the brass band, he was pissed out of his head. Anyway, the inmates were wheeled in, and they all complained to him that they'd been woken up by a band playing brass band music in the middle of the night. Norman Brown said, that's impossible. The prison is locked down at 9 o'clock at night. No brass band in here. Get out. Next one. Seriously. Yeah, that Norman Brown. The Norman Brown. I'll tell you a little story here about Wormwood Scrubs. Yeah. HM Prison Wormwood Scrubs. Yeah, I was working on the block, the secure unit at Wormwood Scrubs. It'd be 1976, yeah, probably around about August 1976, and one of the inmates on the block, the secure unit, was a man called Drury, Kenneth Drury. Now, Kenneth Drury had been a commander or a senior police officer, chief superintendent, commander of the flying squad, the heavy mob at Scotland Yard. He was the head, and he was in prison, locked in, charged and convicted of corruption. I don't know if you've seen that TV series Line of Duty. Well, Commander Drury made that look like a vicar's tea party. He was taking money left, right and centre. him and a number of other very senior officers at Scotland Yard, and hundreds of other senior officers or officers at Scotland Yard were all taking bribes. It was estimated that the amount of money he'd taken in bribes exceeded over £1.5 million in today's money, and that was Commander Drew, and he was on the block at Wormwood Scrubs. I spoke to him a few times. He was a completely broken man, completely broken. He just shambled along. Strangely enough, one night I was on nights at the Scrubs. I hated nights, and I was put in charge of the hospital ward at night. They didn't have a hospital. They had a hospital officer, but he wasn't in the ward. It was me in the ward at night. Now, it was a nice, comfortable chair, really nice, comfortable chair, and I sat behind the desk where normally the senior hospital officer would sit. And it probably got to be about 1:30 in the morning, and you're sitting in a nice comfortable chair at 1:30 in the morning, things are going to happen. Well, that's what happened, and I woke up, and sitting on my knee with his arms round my shoulders, was an inmate who was whispering to me, I love you, kiss me, and he started trying to kiss me, and this guy's quite heavy and a big fella, you know, and what is this? It's about 1:30 in the morning. I've just been asleep for 2 minutes, just drifted off. Get the off me, So I threw him off, and he was mad. The man that this was none other than Bernie Silver, the Soho Vice King, who had been bribing Commander Drury, except this guy, Bernie Silver, was suffering from dementia brought on by syphilis. So he was a syphilitic, demented maniac who had been sitting on my knee trying to French kiss me. Oh, don't fall asleep. I didn't fall asleep in that ward again, I can tell you. Tales from the jail.